Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up some sources that really pull back the curtain on one of the U.S. government's most sensitive and, frankly, strangest secrets.
And I mean, it's a big one.
Yeah, we're talking about a federally funded, multi-million-dollar study of UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right.
A program known as AAWSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program.
And this is a really foundational deep dive because for almost 40 years, after Project Blue Book ended in 1969,
The official line was denial. Total denial.
flat denial. UFOs aren't real or they're swamp gas or whatever. So AAWAP, what these sources show is this massive, highly confidential reversal.
It's the first real funded attempt to understand this stuff since the 60s.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about tracking objects in the sky. It was designed to evaluate the entire ecosystem of strangeness that seems to surround them.
And the money involved was not trivial. This wasn't some back-of-the-napkin operation.
Not at all.
Congress quietly funded it to the tune of $22 million,
Mm-hmm.
run by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, between 2008 and 2010.
And crucially, the work itself, the actual operations, were contracted out.
Right, to a private company set up just for this purpose, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or BS.
So what we're really looking at here is the government's journey from, mocking flying saucers to spending millions on things like medical threats and psychic effects.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Where did this even begin? What were the political forces that brought AAWSP into existence?
Well, the sources are crystal clear on this. It really wouldn't have happened without one person.
Senator Harry Reid.
Senator Harry Reid of Nevada, he was the absolute catalyst.
And his interest was, what, a new thing?
No, it was lifelong. It came from his childhood, from watching the skies over Searchlight, Nevada.
And his own staff, they were on board with this.
Oh, not at all. They explicitly warned him. I mean, they told him quite sensibly, stay the hell away from this.
But he didn't.
He was convinced it was a real technological gap, something that deserved an honest look.
And he got the money. What's amazing is how he did it, with real bipartisan support.
That's right. He got $22 million with help from Senator Ted Stevens, a Republican from Alaska.
And Daniel Inouye from Hawaii, a Democrat.
Yeah, and the story about Stevens is incredible. He was apparently swayed by something that happened to him decades earlier.
What was that?
He was a pilot in World War II. He recounted seeing something off his wing that moved in ways that were just impossible for any plane he knew.
So that personal experience, decades later, helped secure millions for a secret UFO program.
It absolutely solidified his commitment.
Now, it's really important to get the structure right here because the media got this confused later on.
It really did. So AAWP was created and managed by a DIA physicist, Dr. James Lukotsky,
And the goal was threat evaluation.
specifically to evaluate the threat potential of UAPs. That $22 million went to AAWSAP and its contractor, APS. That was the big comprehensive research engine.
And then there was ATIP.
Right. The public later heard about ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That was a different, much smaller Pentagon office that was mistakenly linked to all that funding.
So AAWSAP was the real multi-million-dollar deep dive.
It was the foundational operation.
Okay, so if the mission was strictly threat evaluation for the DIA, why did they go so far beyond just, nuts and bolts, metalcraft and propulsion systems?
That's the fascinating part. They realized almost immediately that you couldn't just study the objects in isolation.
Because there were always other things happening around them.
Exactly. Decades of research, both private and military, show that there were always these other correlates.
Like what?
Strange psychological experiences, physiological impacts on witnesses, they always seem to co-locate. So if AAWSA was going to really evaluate the threat, it couldn't ignore all the non-physical stuff.
So their goal was pretty revolutionary for a government program.
Oh, absolutely.
They wanted to look at lift, propulsion, control, power generation, all the expected things.
The hardware.
But then they expanded it to include things like spatial temporal translation, human interface, and human effects.
They deliberately went after the paranormal and psychic aspects because they understood that if you only focus on the technology, you're missing the bigger picture. You're missing how it all works, how it has an impact.
The observer is part of the data.
That's the central idea, and it brings us right to the main catalyst for all of this.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. It was critical.
And the connection there was, what, a book?
It started there. Lukotsky, the DIA physicist, read the book Hunt for the Skinwalker about Robert Bigelow's earlier research there. But it wasn't just academic.
No.
It was catalyzed by Lukatsky's his own astonishing encounter during his first visit to the ranch in 2007.
And this guy is a seasoned DIA analyst, a ballistic missile physicist. He's not some random person.
Not at all. And he described seeing a semi-opaque, yellowish, tubular technological device just hovering silently in broad daylight.
And everyone saw it.
That's the kicker. He was the only one who saw it.
Wait.
There were 4 people there. It was visible to him, but completely invisible to the other 3.
So, the U.S. government starts a multi-million-dollar DIA program based on a sighting that only one person could see, even if he was highly credentialed.
That's the friction point, right? The justification wasn't political, it was professional.
Yeah.
His security clearance, his long career as a physicist for the DIA, it meant his personal, undeniable, and frankly bizarre sighting carried enormous weight.
It convinced him.
It convinced him, and through him, Senator Reid, that the threat was real, it was complex, and it required an agency like the DIA, which deals with intelligence and threat matrices, not just physics.
Which leads directly into maybe the most unsettling discovery of the whole program.
Hitchhiker phenomena.
Bizarre collateral effects on the people who actually went to the ranch.
The accounts are, they're frighteningly consistent. All 5 of the actively serving intelligence personnel who visited the ranch for AAWSAP and BASF,
All 5.
every single one. They reported profound anomalies. They brought something home. The phenomenon seemed to follow them across state lines.
How did a government contractor even begin to analyze that? Did they treat it like ghosts?
Not at all. They approached it scientifically. They used 2 main models.
Okay.
The infectious disease model or the social contagion model.
So was it just in their heads a shared delusion? Or was it literally contagious?
That was the question. Was it a sociological trend or was it transmissible, like radiation or some unknown energy? They had to consider the infectious disease model because the effects were often physiological, medically deleterious.
Treating a haunting like a virus, that's something else.
It is.
And the examples are incredibly specific. Take Jonathan Axelrod, a senior naval intelligence engineer.
And, this is the lead investigator on the Nimitz Tic Tac case, a very serious guy.
He visits the ranch. He comes home to Virginia, and his house, a secure home, becomes what the documents call a paranormal Disneyland.
That's the literal phrase used. His family was traumatized. We're talking shadow figures, orbs flying through the house.
Aggressive events.
Right. And most disturbing of all, sightings of bipedal, wolf-like creatures, dogmen, in their suburban backyard.
The absurdity of that happening to a senior intelligence engineer, it must have just shaken the whole program.
Profoundly. And the pattern just repeats.
The Pentagon analyst Juliet Witt.
Her home erupts in poltergeist activity. Wine bottles being flung across the room, ceiling fans turning on and off.
And this went on for years. Her roommate had to leave.
Packed up and left immediately. Then you have the direct medical consequences, which really pushed that infectious model idea.
Right, the case of Jim Costigan's wife, Layla.
She develops Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease.
And this was after what?
After a blue orb passed within an inch of her shoulder while she was on a walk in Maryland. This was after her husband's visit to Skinwalker.
So the reports suggest a direct link between the encounter and the illness.
They do. The threat wasn't just theoretical anymore, it was clinical.
So beyond the ranch, AAWSAP also did these deep investigations into other UAP cases. Let's talk about the Nimitz Tic Tac incident from 2004.
Right. AAWSAP and BAS were actually the first government body to do in-depth interviews with all the pilots and radar operators.
This was in 2009.
Yeah, January to June 2009. And their conclusion was definitive. The Tic Tac, the anomalous aerial vehicle, was not a known U.S. or foreign aircraft, period.
And it showed incredible performance.
Supersonic acceleration, advanced propulsion, all of it.
But the really chilling part, the most concerning finding, was about its intelligence. Its knowledge of secret military operations.
This is the key. When Commander Fravor went down to investigate it, the object vanished.
And
then, in seconds, it reappeared at the FA-18's Secret Combat Air Patrol location, the CAP point.
And to be clear, this wasn't just guessing a spot in the ocean.
No. This was knowing a precise latitude, longitude, and altitude coordinate that was known only to a handful of people in the entire carrier strike group.
So that implies
What?
an adversary with unbelievable intelligence gathering.
Or a non-human threat. It demonstrated not just superior technology, but this high-level, almost prescient knowledge of classified U.S. tactical plans.
And AAWSA continued to study physical harm. They had a whole category for the biological threat, focusing on these blue orbs.
The Ron Becker case from 2005 is horrifying.
This is the man who had a blue orb fly through his body.
A softball-sized blue orb right through him while he was driving.
And the effects were immediate.
Dire, nausea, extreme hair loss, and intense red rash. The documented symptoms were medically consistent with a radiation insult.
And later on,
he developed a form of cancer, ductal carcinoma in situ, in his chest, and its location was temporally consistent with the path the orb took through his body.
So the BS physicians concluded.
They concluded there was enough circumstantial evidence to say the orb had an adverse physiological effect. The reports are blunt about it. Blue orbs are not benign.
This link between UAPs and medical injury, it also came up in their investigations into black triangles.
It did. The Derek Jones case in North Georgia in 2009, he sees a silent 300-foot triangular craft.
And he shines a spotlight on it.
And the craft retaliates. It hits him with an intense bluish-white beam of heat and light,
causing immediate burning sensations.
Yes, and then later, hair loss and a diagnosis of lymphoma. The injuries, again, fit this pattern of radiation exposure seen in other cases.
And that case gets even stranger with the ours or theirs question.
Right, because the very next day, DHS agents show up to question him.
And they knew they were DHS.
His license plate was tracked to a Department of Homeland Security carpool.
So internally,
Yeah.
AAWSA had to consider if this was one of our own secret programs, a U.S. Special Access Program that had malfunctioned and irradiated a civilian.
That, or it was an unidentified foreign or non-human threat. They had to evaluate both.
And you have to remember the international context here, too.
Absolutely. AAWSA specifically looked at historical files, like the Soviet Thread 3 documents from 1991.
Which showed what?
That Russia had its own comprehensive, sophisticated UAP programs years ago. This just fueled Senator Reid's concern that the U.S. was already way behind the curve.
So when the program wrapped up, what was the actual legacy? It must have generated a mountain of data.
It was voluminous. They produced 109 separate reports.
109.
Including 38 Defense Intelligence Reference Documents, or DIRDs, on future aerospace tech. And a DIRD isn't just a memo, it's a formal, high-level intelligence product for senior decision-makers.
And they created a database for all this.
The BAS Data Warehouse. 11 databases with tens of thousands of sightings, NIDs data, military pilot reports, old Blue Book cases, all of it. Organized for serious analysis.
And how it was organized seems really crucial, especially when you're collecting data on poltergeists and autoimmune diseases, not just, hardware specs.
That's right. The whole thing was based on the 6-layer model for anomalous phenomena from Jacques Vallée and Eric Davis.
And that's the revolutionary part.
It is. The model explicitly says that any serious UAP study has to analyze all 6 layers.
Which are?
Physical, observational, physiological, psychological, psychic consciousness, and environmental.
So integrating those last few, physiological, psychological, and psychic, why is that so radical for a DIA study?
Because it forces the government to formally acknowledge that the witness's own body and mind are legitimate data collection instruments.
You can't just dismiss it.
You can't. If you ignore the radiation burns or the hitchhiker effect, you are missing the full threat profile. AAWST was designed specifically to prevent analysts from dismissing the medically and psychologically bizarre.
And when AAWSP delivered its final report in 2010, what was the bottom line? The ultimate finding, after tracking all that physiological damage.
The final report concluded that the UAP phenomenon is, and I'm quoting here, a threat to human health and well-being.
A threat to human health.
Evidenced by the physical injuries and diseases they documented, that is a massive official claim that UAPs can cause cancer and autoimmune disease. It fundamentally reframes the whole issue. It's not an aerospace curiosity anymore. It's a public health hazard.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The AAWSAP program really represents this foundational, government-sponsored effort that didn't just study metalcraft. It dove headfirst into the weirdest parts of the phenomena.
And for the people involved, the nuts and bolts craft and the paranormal fallout, the hitchhiker effect, the medical damage, they were completely inseparable, 2 sides of the same coin.
The legacy of AIWSAP, especially with that 6-layer model, it forces us to confront this tension between the physical evidence, the radar tracks and the Tic Tac videos.
And the subjective physiological consequences. It really puts the focus on the witness's role. Some scientists, like Bernardo Kastrup or Jeffrey Kripal, they suggest human consciousness might be integral to these interactions. One source even says the witnesses are an integral part of the event.
Which leaves a final provocative thought for you to mull over as we finish this deep dive. If Sam determined that our own minds and our bodies, our immune systems, our perceptions, are capable of recording and even being targeted by these phenomena, are we the missing sensor needed to decode the deeper meaning of these encounters?
Something to think about indeed.
We appreciate you joining us for this deep dive into the Pentagon's secret AAWSAP program. We'll see you next time.